my takeaway from listening to everybody is it depends on who you ask. Some would say he could do it with the magic wand. Some would say, no, he's got to follow a certain protocol. Then others say, no, that protocol is there for people underneath, lower than the president. The president has a much greater ability to do it just by speaking the classified information, for example, he could do it. So it's unclear to me sitting here today how a court would rule on it, though I'm going to guess this Supreme Court would probably be pretty permissive of presidential authority. We don't know, but this has been, even if you take those classified documents out of it, the DOJ is pissed. The DOJ is basically saying you had no right to the non-classified documents. You stole them. They belong to the people. And, that could be true, that those documents technically belong to us because the president's documents belong to the people. But that doesn't speak to the remedy that was employed here.
Amen. So if we are looking at precedent, what have other presidents prior to this one been treated by, the Department of Justice, the Records Administration? So what are those protocols? What does that history look like? And if President Trump is being treated differently, well, that begs the question, why? And again, in this case, it looks as though from all reasonable accounts, even the Department of Justice is saying, yes, the Trump folks have been helpful. They've been working with us. We just decided to engage in this particular remedy for reasons that, well, let's see what the affidavit has to say. But it's not real clear here. So I'm not convinced the facts don't, at this point, suggest that there's an issue or a problem. But really, for me, and I think a lot of other folks who work in the intelligence community have still friends like me in the intelligence community, we have concerns about the level of trust, right? Because Trump and his team can say whatever they want, but we would like to defer to the Department of Justice and the FBI and some of our colleagues who are still FBI agents. We want to say, hey, they are probably right here because we should trust them. We should trust their counsel. But what we have seen over the past 5 years is that's just not true. Mm-hmm. We can't, unfortunately, trust. There's just been too many cases of it. The Department of Justice, their Inspector General, pointed to James Comey and his leaking, saying that he set a dangerous example for the 36,000 employees at the FBI for purposely leaking information that shouldn't have been, all for partisan purposes. You take that, and Megyn, one of the other things that I will never forget is when Chuck Schumer was on TV and had that interview where he was asked, hey, is it wise for President Trump to criticize the FBI and the CIA? And he said, boy, they have 6 ways Sunday to get back at you. So if we are hearing that from people like Chuck Schumer, that's literally what he said, one of the leaders of this country, certainly of his party, saying that the FBI and the CIA have the ability, and indeed they use it to target people, not because the law says so, but rather they have been angered by we say the president. Well, that's outrageous.
Yeah,
we should be concerned about that. My goodness, if that's the culture of this country, holy smokes, we got bigger problems than these 300 documents in Mar-a-Lago, for Pete's sake.
Yeah. And you may not know it's the FBI. It may be the IRS that calls you up and says, guess what? I'm one of the new 86,000 auditors, and I'm coming for you because a phone call was made. Who knows? They're smart enough in some cases not to put their fingerprints on it. But the thing about Merrick Garland, you raise a good point. Do we have reason to trust him? Has he been a straight shooter? Okay, well, let's look at what he did last week when he came out and he tried to play holier than thou. Some stuff is not disclosable, and I'm just going to give a very, very brief statement, and then immediately leaks to the New York Times and the Washington Post about, the behind the scenes rationale alleged and nuclear secrets. Okay, what does that mean? We have no idea what he means by that. The most incendiary term he could drop, and the lapdogs in the media print it, and then everybody's like, holy shit, Trump has the nuclear codes unlocked in Melania's underwear drawer. Right. So exactly as planned. And then just take a step back a year, not even a year ago, where, remember, he was calling the parents the domestic terrorists, Merrick Garland agreeing with that alleged school board representation that said, oh, they're domestic terrorists. So he said, okay, we're going to investigate them as domestic terrorists. And then finally he got called into a hearing and said, where are you getting that from? Like, what's your basis for suggesting the FBI has any role at these school board meetings? And he was forced to admit it was based on, these alleged reports that he got from this school board that had, we went through them point by point. My entire team looked at every single incident, and literally it was like the guy refused to wear his mask when told to wear his mask. The one guy yelled at the meeting and spoke beyond the point where his time was up. I mean, it was, there was like one where it got somewhat dicey with an altercation. All the rest were these small petty. And so I don't trust him. I don't trust him not to overinflate, not to exaggerate when it suits his political purposes.
And look, it's not just an opinion, right? So you just laid out a lot of very thoughtful and good examples of a degree of politicization, if not weaponization, of the Department of Justice and the FBI based on partisan realities or preferences, right? So this isn't an opinion issue. There is a long book and record. Let me add one more. Recently, obviously, the Roe v. Wade decision came down, very, very controversial. But in the weeks leading up to it, there were, of course, all the protests out in front of the houses. And of course, that was violation of the law. And Merrick Garland and the FBI and the Department of Justice didn't protect those individuals, didn't act in an aggressive or thoughtful way per what the law allowed. And so I think a lot of people ask, well, why not? Why aren't you protecting what some people might say are the conservative justices? And would you perhaps have a different sort of view if they were the more liberal justices? So there are lots of examples, some big, some small, but you put them together and no longer are we talking about an opinion about the Department of Justice and the FBI becoming politicized. In fact, these are the facts, and that's what's frightening.
We all know the answer to that. You're telling me, okay, Ketanji Brown Jackson takes her seat on the U.S. Supreme Court. She's been sworn in now, and she gets protesters outside of her house night and day with children at home. There is zero chance the FBI would ignore that. Zero.
Correct.
And we all know
Correct.
it. It's what leads to the frustration and distrust. And we would want the FBI to shut that down, just as we wanted them to shut it down when it was Kavanaugh and it was Alito and it was all the conservatives.
And you're bringing up this really important point, which is what happens when the FBI loses the trust of the American people? Well, we naturally say, tear it down, destroy it, get rid of it, restart it, do something with it. But there are a lot of threats in this country and this world that the FBI needs to take a part of. It needs to be investigating, needs to help solve. I mean, I'm a national security guy. China is a big one for me. The FBI, we know, starts an investigation of the Chinese related entities once every 12 hours in this country, 365 days a year. So we need the FBI engaged and involved in these kinds of efforts to keep our adversaries at bay, to keep us safe. But when we start, lacking in trust, the calls to disband the FBI, which I actually agree with because it's become so, politicized, well, then we start losing the ability to keep the country safe. So the stakes here are really big. This is not just about Trump or the documents at Mar-a-Lago. This is about being able to keep the nation safe. And right now, the FBI and the DOJ are putting this country at risk because of their own partisan politics.
Like many of us, I am eating healthier these days, and that is why I love good olive oil. You gotta have good olive oil. And by good, I mean fresh. Olive oil packs the most flavor and the healthiest nutrients when it's fresh from the farm. And that is the problem with supermarket olive oils. They're not fresh. They can sit on the shelf for months growing stale. That is why I love, and I do mean I love, my olive oil direct from small, award-winning farms thanks to a guy named TJ Robinson, also known as the olive oil hunter. When I tasted TJ's Farm Fresh oils, I fell in love with their vibrant, grassy flavors. I know that sounds weird, but they're so good. They're incredibly delicious on salad, on veggies, pasta, meat, fish, you name it. When I first tried it, I was like, olive oil, it's all the same. Wrong. It's not all the same. As an introduction to his fresh pressed olive oil club, TJ's going to send you a full-sized $39 bottle of one of the world's finest artisanal olive oils, fresh from the new harvest for just $1 to help him cover the shipping. Best of all, with TJ's Club, there's never a commitment to buy anything, now or ever, and you can cancel your membership at any time. Get your free $39 bottle for just $1, just covering the shipping, that's all, and taste the difference freshness makes. Go to harvestfreshnow.com. That's harvestfreshnow.com for a free bottle, and all you pay is just that $1 in shipping. harvestfreshnow.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.